Today I'm going to show you how to make beeswax wraps. Over here I have a finished product. Beeswax wraps are a great alternative to using cling film. You can use them to wrap sandwiches and fruit and those sorts of things in the kids' lunches, and they're great for covering if you've got a bowl. Just press it down, and this particular recipe is a beeswax wrap that has got jojoba oil as well as some resin in it. And it means that it's nice and sticky, and as you can see it sticks really well to bowls and plates and also to itself, to be honest. The recipe for this wrap you can find on our website. I've put the link down in the description below. What you will need is some squares of fabric. This recipe makes enough for 6 squares of fabric that are 12 inches by 12 inches or 30 centimetres by 30 centimetres. And any lightweight cotton, quilting fabric is pretty much ideal. So these I bought as a big box set of quilting fabric. You can decide whether you want to use pinking shears to trim the edges. That's just these fancy scissors that have the zigzags along the side. Because the mixture will help hold the threads together, you don't have to worry about that if you don't want to. Ideally you will have washed these and pressed them flat. These fabrics usually have like a starch on them, so you need to wash that off before you get started. Cut these to size and trim the edges with the pinking shears, so they're all ready to go. What you will need is 6 squares of fabric cut ready to size, some jojoba oil. However, if you don't have this, you can use another food grade oil. The upside to jojoba oil is that it is an antibacterial and it doesn't smell strongly. There are other antibacterial oils, but they have quite a pungent smell. You can replace it with olive oil or almond oil, but they don't have the same antibacterial properties. You'll also need some damar resin or pine resin. Damar resin, this is what it looks like, is a tree resin. It's commonly used as an ingredient in food glazes. Lots of candies and things use it for their food glaze. It's FDA approved to use on or near food products. You can use pine resin. A lot of people do use pine resin. It does, however, have a smell, whereas this doesn't really smell at all. So you just have to be aware that the more smell you put in your ingredients, the more smell your end product wraps are going to have, and they may taint your sandwiches. The other thing you will need is some beeswax. I have used beeswax pellets purely because they're easier to measure. You can use just blocks of beeswax and cut them smaller. The pellets do melt faster as well. And the reason I put the damar resin in here is because you can buy it powdered. I've got the hard stuff, so I'm going to have to crush it. The smaller you crush it, the faster it will melt. And that's really all you need. You'll need a tray lined with some foil, which I've got one sitting over the side there, and the oven just turned on low. To make this recipe, you need 100 grams or 3.5 ounces of beeswax in a pot, 20 grams of resin, whether you choose to use damar resin or whether you choose to use pine resin, and 3 teaspoons of jojoba oil. Making these beeswax wraps at home is really easy. It just takes a wee bit of preparation and some specialty products. So I'm just going to crush this resin up. Doesn't have to be a really fine powder, just into small pieces. And then I'm going to go and set this over on the element until it's all melted. Now, just a safety note, beeswax is highly flammable. If you cook with an open flame, it is recommended that you do this on a double boiler. Apparently I like to walk the risky side of life. I have only ever used it just straight on the heat like this. However, that's not the recommended way. I'm not taking responsibility if you manage to burn the place down. While you've got that melting, you probably should watch it a bit closer than I am, but anyway. While it's melting, you can sit your fabric ready on a foil-lined cookie sheet. The foil will just protect your cookie sheet from getting this mixture all over it because it is really hard to get off. You can see that as it melts, the resin does take a lot longer to melt down. And it kind of becomes this chewy little mess on the bottom. But as you can see, with some time, that slowly does melt down and dissolve as well. Once it's all nicely dissolved, that's when you add your oil. You want 3 teaspoons of jojoba oil. This oil is also what makes sure that it stays flexible. So if your wraps are too crunchy and snapping, add a little more oil next time. Once everything's nicely melted, you take it off the heat and we'll take it over to where our fabric is. Now the other thing you will need that I forgot to mention is an old paintbrush. So all you need to do is paint this mixture onto your fabric. You want all the fabric to be covered, but not too thickly. Once all the fabric's covered, you can pop it into a warm oven that's about 200 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius, just for about 30 seconds to a minute. That just makes the oil seep into the fabric properly and evens it out. And you can see on this wrap that I made earlier, I hope it shows up, you can see here there's the fabric that hasn't got the mixture on, and here the mixture's really, really thick. So if that's what's happening for you, chances are it's cooled down too much in the pot. So you need to pop it back on the heat and warm it back up so it's nice and liquid. This can usually be remedied by simply putting, look how thick it is on there. When it's too thick, it just cracks and peels off. So you can pop this, fold it up like this, back into the oven with the dry side down, and this will melt and come back through. After just a quick short time in the oven, you can see the whole thing's got quite shiny. There'll be lumps on there from last time. And just very carefully, you can use tongs if you prefer, it will be quite hot. Just very carefully pick it up and sway it in the breeze for a little bit. This is just enough to cool it down to help the beeswax set. And then you can just check in the light to make sure that there's no patches that are uncovered. And if there's not, you can then either peg this up or just hang it over a wire rack until it's cool. So you just simply keep repeating that with each of your pieces of fabric. You can layer them, do multiple layers at once. If you're a little impatient, you can paint them, put the next one, paint them, put the next one, and put them in the oven all at once. You do risk them getting stuck together and giving a slightly less good finish. These beeswax wraps make great gifts. They're perfect for children when they're taking their lunches to school, and they are a brilliant Christmas present. Homemade beeswax wraps will last for about a year, maybe 6 months to a year of regular use, and then you'll often find that they start to crack. The easiest solution when they start to crack is simply to unfold them, pop them on your tray, pop them back in the oven. If they've got quite obvious bare patches, you can use a little of the mixture and just paint it over the cracks and holes and just rebake it. And that will be enough to refresh your wrap for another 6 months or so. Eventually they will get to the point where you don't want to use them anymore. And the best thing about these is they're made of cotton and beeswax. They're all natural ingredients. You can actually pop them in your compost and they will decompose. Take care of your beeswax wraps. Simply wash them and wipe them down with some cool water and some mild dish soap. You don't want to put them through the dishwasher or the washing machine, as that will strip all the oils off, which is what we're trying to preserve. Homemade beeswax wraps are not designed to wrap meat. They're great for wrapping cheese because they breathe, but they also keep the cheese moist. So cheese will last really well wrapped in a beeswax wrap. Same with bread. You can make really big ones to wrap loaves of bread. However, they're not designed to keep meat in. Meat juice will seep through and contaminate the fabric, and then you'll end up with stinky, gross wraps that can make you sick. If you've got any questions or comments about making the beeswax wraps, please put them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer those. So don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.